Our story begins in the midst of a seemingly unremarkable orc village called Pubiz. Surrounded by high mountains and dense forests, the village was perfectly hidden from the eyes of ill-wishers. Besides, where to find such a fool who would dare to attack the orcs known for their strength and violent temper? Our protagonist is a small orc named Gul, known throughout the village for his hijinks. He knows how to do just three things: run, run fast, and run away with his heels glistening. And now he was running through the village, heading straight for Bork Restaurant. There's an orc woman herself was butchering meat with sharp knives, and she was doing it quite skillfully. In one deft movement, she tossed the meat upwards, and with a stone face, as if nothing had happened, she stood still for a moment. But then, before the piece of meat could fall, she chopped it into many small pieces with her lightning-fast movements. Her name was Aunt Jiram, and she was the sole chef and owner of the Bork Restaurant. Gul was just running through her restaurant and couldn't help but take advantage of such a good moment, so he jumped up high and was about to grab a little snack on the go. He just grabbed one of the pieces in flight with his mouth wide open, and grabbed it with a deadly grip. After stealing a piece of meat, he wasn't going to stop for a second and continued his crazy run. And it was the right thing to do. Auntie Bork was furious at this brazen theft and wasn't going to let him get away with it. She immediately ran out after him and tried to punish the little rat once and for all with a knife, but Gul managed to dodge and the knife only cut off a piece of stolen meat. He kept running no matter what. The village was bustling with life, and a group of orc builders were now constructing a new house from thick logs. Gul was happy that he could steal the meat so cheaply and escape the consequences, but he didn't look ahead at all. He immediately paid for his inattention by crashing into a log, which was carried by one of the builders. From the impact, he immediately missed a piece of meat. The orc builder was strong and barely felt the impact, but still turned around to look at the source of the trouble. Gul had already regained his senses and continued running as if nothing had happened, and the log he had broken was not his own head. The builder only managed to shout after him that he, the insolent beansprout, should not hang around here anymore. He also shouted at him, "Pray I don't run into you or you'll be eating shit." But Gul ignored all that and kept running. Next in his path was a field with a farm where an orc family was working in sweat. The grass was flying in all directions after each stroke of the scythe. And during another swing, Gul nearly lost his head as he ran past. This understandably did not stop him, and he continued his mad race with the whistling of the wind. Before his eyes was only the path he thought he had to run. The farmers only looked at him tiredly. The orc woman wondered why this child always ran as if someone was chasing him. The orc wasn't going to look into it and told her that only the dumb bald kid himself could answer that question. At least he was of some use, since he was scaring the damn birds away from their crops with his erratic running. Gul ran on, scaring away all the animals on his way, and so he reached the forest, where his peers were performing an important rite of passage into war and were about to hunt a big, fat boar that was unsuspectingly digging in the grass and ground nearby. The elders had taught them that the most important thing in this business was patience and silence, so they lurked in the bushes nearby and waited in silence for a good moment to attack. But they did not have enough patience, and one of them clenched his spear tighter and was going to solve everything quickly and not to waste time. Smelling the movement, the boar became alert. But it was too late. He would not be able to escape, and the orc knew it very well. So he jumped out of the bushes and sent his patience to hell and swung for a good throw. He was going to finish the boar with a battle cry, and he would have done it if Gul hadn't come screaming into the clearing. He distracted the hunter just for a moment, but it was enough for the boar to escape. Gul paid no attention to any of this and ran on. The disgruntled and angry one-liners didn't understand what this runner was doing here. They were going to take revenge on him and roast him alive instead of the boar he had frightened away, if they did not catch another one today. Suddenly, to their surprise, the boar stopped and stood still nearby. They couldn't believe that this boar was so stupid. The two orc buddies, whose names were Dobuk and Kagan, began to grin in satisfied smiles. Kagan thought that they were sure to have a feast tonight. Dobuk agreed with him and couldn't wait for them to get full of boar's meat. But the boar thought otherwise and ran away with a loud fart. The two idiot friends ran after him with rage, threatening to kill the stupid pig. Gul finally slowed down. He was immediately dizzy from running fast and stopping abruptly. He stopped only because he faced a seemingly insurmountable obstacle, a mighty mountain. But he fearlessly declared to it that today was the day when it was challenged by the great Gul himself, the conqueror of mountains. Without a moment's hesitation, he rushed forward and leaped and grabbed onto the nearest ledge. Gul climbed up as vigorously as he ran without stopping for a second, grabbing first with his left hand, then his right. Suddenly, he almost fell from the powerful impact that shook the mountain. Looking down, he saw a lone figure shaking the mountain with its blows time after time. It was one of the orc warriors of their village, and for some reason he looked suspiciously like Bruce Banner in a rage. The Hulk look-alike even had the iconic pants. Blow after blow shook the mountain and poor Gul could barely hold on. But his second surprise and confusion were immediately replaced by excitement, and he screamed, "Oh yes!" Gul was only too happy for the challenge and only rushed to the top with more zeal. Nothing could stop him now. Finally, he made it and reached the top. His sweaty and tired face just glowed with joy. You must have wondered from the beginning why he kept running. It's a silly question, I'll tell you, because obviously it's because he's a Gul and his heart swelled with excitement at the thought of the uncharted land stretching beyond the horizon. Standing on top of the mountain, he shouted to the world that was now at his feet, "I am Gul. Behold, the blissful view that only the great ones can behold." Soon, he vowed to travel to lands far beyond the horizon and be known as the strongest conqueror of mountains. Gul. All his fervor vanished when he finally realized that he was seeing the sunset and the day was coming to an end. He cried out in horror, not believing he was seeing the sunset. A fierce wind immediately blew off the top of such an inattentive weakling who had forgotten that he had a test today and had to bring back the loot. Gul barely had time at the last moment to grab the ledge and save his skin. Meanwhile, every orc in Bubiz village has started to congregate at the largest homestead for the orc gathering. The fearsome orc chief of Bubiz, named Garrick, will be spearheading the hunt ceremony, one of their most sacred traditions that every young orc undergoes. To these young ones, surviving in the wild is a basic skill that must be learned to face the dangers of the world they live in. So the veteran orcs, whether they're farmers or warriors, have trained, observed, and evaluated the new generation for the hunt. Tonight is the culmination of that, the gathering to celebrate the achievements of the 4 young orc warriors. Or at least there are supposed to be 4 of them. Chief Garrick was displeased that a certain young and bald Gul was missing from the ceremony. As always, little Gul is still running through the woods long after the sun has gone down. Only now, he's more desperate and out of breath than ever. On the way back to the village, he spotted an innocent rabbit feeding on the grass. This reminded him that tonight was supposed to be the most important night for the new orc warriors, the celebration of the hunt. Even with fatigue, Gul readied himself to turn the running speed to a higher gear. If there's one thing he's good at, then that one thing would have to be running. He promptly positioned his arm for a technique while maintaining the running speed. All his spare energy is being poured into perfecting the timing of his next move. It was a flawless snatch and run of the clueless rabbit by the ear. While Gul was on the way to the celebration of the hunt, he might as well bring something small, rather than bring nothing at all. Still, that doesn't mean that he's still not in deep shit with the orc chief. Garrick is getting increasingly impatient sitting on his throne. This night was supposed to be sacred for the whole village. Behind the door of the chief's homestead, a loud and playful voice can be heard getting nearer and nearer. It sounds like Gul is doing his best NFL player impression while running at full speed. Sliding into the gathering with his bald head while clutching the rabbit's ear like a football, Gul has finally arrived. He felt like he just scored the touchdown of his life after breaking through the entrance. The greatest athlete in the world, a magnificent play by Gul the Conqueror. This little guy is so caught up in the moment that he forgets what is waiting for him inside the homestead. The fearsome orcs inside were not impressed by his rowdy entrance at all. On the contrary, they were glaring at him menacingly. Gul just tried to play it off meekly while clutching his tiny rabbit and trying to scoot through the crowd. Chief Garrick's glare was piercing, to say the least. He was a humongous beast emanating the strength of the orcs. With all the hunters in training, called the Hanto, gathered, it's about time to line them up and see the fruits of their labor. Each of them has been given a whole day to hunt on their own. It should be more than enough to bring something that can satisfy one's appetite. Starting off with the rough and edgy junior hunter Kagan, he brought home a big booty boar so healthy and lively that it's still continuously farting. Proud cheers from the villagers erupted while the chief nodded with just enough satisfaction. Next up was another junior hunter, Dobuk. Looking at his battered head and fists, it's evident that he struggled with his prey, but he has proven that his head was harder than the hooves of a deer. The crowd praised him for being an exemplary example of an orc's strength. Even Chief Garrick was smiling and nodding with praise. The third junior hunter, Mutu, held his head high up. He hunted down a bighorn sheep without even breaking a sweat or getting his clothes messy. The chief could not help but clap and rejoice at the sight of such a promising junior hunter in this batch. The villagers even labeled Mutu OP. The kid really was overpowered compared to everyone else. Coming in at the last second is none other than the mighty junior hunter Gul with his tiny and sad rabbit in hand. What he lacks in big prey, he makes up for with pure vibes. But the villagers were not impressed at all. No cheers, no celebration, just pure deathly and unmoved silence. After seeing all the promising juniors, Chief Garrick's good mood has turned into a rage after seeing that this is all that Gul can scrounge up for a whole day of supposed hunting. Braba Gul is the son of Gulfin, the greatest blacksmith in Buba's village, and now the chief is walking up to him with ominous fury radiating everywhere. The little bald troublemaker trembled in his boots, stumbling in his words and accidentally calling the chief Chip instead. Garrick was insulted by the cheap loot that this junior has brought him for the sacred ceremony. Ghoul's mischief tonight has also brought shame to his mother. With all that in mind, Garrick furiously primed his fist with a burning passion. He then threw it out with blinding speed, like a missile heading right for the little shit. Ghoul ate the disciplinary punch level 1 from the chief's right fist, a fist as big as the little guy's body. It was so painful that he felt the world turn black and white for a minute. The homestead's entrance was absolutely demolished from the impact as Ghoul flew like a ragdoll. Chief Garrick's strength was so powerful that 2 orc warriors had to jump in and catch Ghoul with all their might to prevent him from flying to God knows where. At that moment, it was as if his soul had left his body. The pain from the indent on his stomach has totally numbed his senses and knocked him out unconscious. When Ghoul woke up a few moments later, the hunt ceremony had wrapped up, and he was all alone in the middle of the village. Some orcs were kind enough to patch him up, but the pain from that disciplinary punch still lingers. Chief Garrick only wanted his juniors to hunt, and it seemed like Ghoul just played all day of all the days. Orcs are supposed to be strong, trained, and disciplined. Ghoul has made a mockery of their tradition by being weak and lazy for the hunt. Garrick does not even want to see Ghoul's bald head anymore. The little guy must reflect on what he's done. Ghoul knew that the chief wanted him to reflect on his actions, but that punch was still too much for him. As he walks through the dimly lit village, he notices that he's already at the entrance of his house. Instead of going into the home of the greatest blacksmith, Ghoul chose to continue walking. He just doesn't want to see the face of that grumpy old lady, his grumpy old lady. Just imagining the angry shouts from that fearsome and well-equipped old orc was enough to send a cold chill down Ghoul's spine. So, he continued walking while singing casually, eventually arriving at his very own secret base, a cavern near a cliff at the top of a mountain. He had all he needed inside this cozy secret base of his. He had food, a bed, and everything that a young orc needs to be on his own for the night. In the corner of the room, he even had a lamp that just needed a little shake to light up the place. This day was absolutely exhausting for Ghoul, so hitting the hay for a moment just hits different. He felt comfortable for a moment, but his injury from earlier was starting to act up again. All he wanted was to rest, but the consequences of his actions are bothering him, painfully at that. It looks like the night wasn't over yet for the young orc. His whole body was tingling in discomfort. For now, he might as well piss for some relief. His injuries and even his bladder just won't let him rest up for the night. In this secret base, his toilet is the whole world, or at least the edge of the cliff outside the cavern. With pain and all that, Ghoul would not miss the chance to play, even if he had to do it with his own pee. He's gotten so good at using the cliff as his toilet that he can now perform the legendary rolling thunder piss. His fun time was suddenly interrupted after seeing a massive fire in the middle of the forest. Looking at it closely, that fire doesn't look like your run-of-the-mill forest flame. It was actually getting close and running through the trees. To add to his misfortunes for today, he heard an extremely disconcerting sound coming from below his feet, from the cliff edge he's been carelessly using as his toilet. Ghoul's open-air bathroom just collapsed while his pee stream was still going. It looks like the cliff was blasted off by the same bizarre incident related to what's happening with the fire in the forest. While falling at such a fearsome height, he managed to get his pants up, but his pee was falling alongside him. Ghoul hits the rocky floor with a painful impact, a second unrelated aching injury in the same night. His back was in agony, causing him to scream out in anguish. His consciousness had started slipping off once again, but fate is way too cruel to Ghoul. His own piss came down from the cliff and landed squarely on his open, screaming mouth. The taste certainly prevented him from passing out. Ghoul desperately tried to get the pee out of his system like he was possessed by an evil spirit. The pain from his stomach and back and the salty taste in his mouth was absolute torture. But another thing snapped him out of his torment. A massive flaming beast in the shape of a wolf was chasing a dark elf, and they were heading in Ghoul's direction. The dark elf was evidently injured, but those eyes are full of determination. To make sense of all the chaos, let's rewind back to a few moments earlier. The forest of the orcs is a tough terrain to maneuver, especially if you're huffing and puffing for air from exhaustion. The dark elf is going through some rough pursuit. Hands are already shaking from just holding a knife. He cannot slow down, but he wants to try to delay his pursuers even for just a second. The knife was expertly thrown at a perfect angle and speed. The sharp blade zoomed through the air. It was like a bullet breaking through the wind itself. But that puny blade was no match for the fiery wolf beast. It was easily swatted and split into two. It was supposed to delay the beast, but all it did was disappoint the dark elf. He couldn't help but curse in frustration at his hectic situation. The mysterious dark elf has been running for days. With his wound, it's getting harder and harder for him to outrun the beast, a massive wolf-like creature with fire in its eyes. Looking at it closely, it seems to have some metal fixings on its back, bellowing steam and smoke out. Its claws are equally sharp and hard, enough to grind down the solid stones of the orc forest. This gargantuan beast is locked in. Its only goal is to catch the dark elf with all its might. The wolf struck down with its claws, and it almost ripped the ground that the dark elf has been standing on open. He managed to evade at the last second, but just the impact was enough to send him stumbling disgracefully. Gritting his teeth, he tanked that area of effect hit with just guts and determination. He finally broke the momentum and regained balance on his feet after a few moments. But the attack has significantly worsened his condition, throwing up blood all over the ground as sharp pain spreads on his insides. But despite all of that, he's sticking to his mission. He has to protect a certain something with his life. He'll do that even if his soul is crushed and his mind slips away. Behind the steaming beast appear two silhouettes, walking menacingly with glee in their eyes. Two evil-looking goons are smiling from ear to ear as they watch the dark elf suffer in pain. The smaller man with spiky hair and sly eyes was particularly unnerving. The dark elf felt a heavy presence weigh him down with an ominous feeling. He started trembling in equal parts pain and fear, but he still reached for a blade, for he must not falter as a dark elf assassin. Another throwing knife was drawn and thrown with all the strength his whole body could muster. He fully intends to fight until his last breath. Being drained and gravely injured, his attacks have started to become useless. The knife was simply flicked away by the beast. And that brings us to the reason why Ghoul's legendary rolling thunder piss was rudely interrupted. The tiny knife was blasted up to the cliff, retaining just enough force to cut out the edge of Ghoul's prestigious toilet. Out of hope and options, the dark elf just decided to invest his remaining strength in running again. He made a mad dash deeper into the forest, near the spot where the cliff edge was hacked off. Miss Dark Elf Assassin was so focused on gaining just a little bit of distance that he didn't notice the tiny bald orc throwing up piss on the rocks nearby. Ghoul, with pee still in his taste buds, was absolutely perplexed as to what the hell was happening in front of him. All he could see was an injured dark elf getting chased by a demonic-looking beast. It finally sunk into Ghoul's mind that this absurd scene was really unfolding in front of him. He tried to get away as fast and as desperately as he could. Seeing a monster after falling down from a cliff and drinking your own pee is really not in Ghoul's plans for tonight. The dark elf finally noticed the young orc making a fuss and considered that there must be an orc village nearby. If that was the case, there might still be a chance to get out of this pinch alive. Mr. Dark Elf Assassin tried to call out to Ghoul, but Baldy was too focused on posturing that he was not afraid of the beast. He's even planning on utilizing some of the falling rock debris as a sort of weapon. Ghoul kicked a piece of rock toward the beast that he dubbed a hot dog. Hot Dog just smirked arrogantly while watching the tiny rock zoom through the air. Instead of an easy and humiliating swatting, the tiny rock managed to produce a crack right on impact. It was out of the beast's expectations that a little bald orc could damage its sharp paw. But Ghoul is still just a scared kid, and he managed to anger an unknown fearsome beast. For now, he might as well do what he does best: run as fast as he possibly can. Seeing how ridiculously fast that mad dash was, even the Dark Elf Assassin was in awe of the young orc's engine. Sadly, Ghoul might be fast, but he can be clumsy and inattentive at times. He missed a piece of rock along the way. That one tiny flaw in the terrain combined with his blinding speed caused him to barrel roll across the rocky path. He could not break his momentum at all, and Ghoul is now heading for the second unintended cliff diving experience of the night. The young orc landed on the cliff face with his face first. He flipped and flipped like a ragdoll without control. His injuries and wounds are starting to pile up, physically and mentally. Ghoul finally hit the ground, his body limp and without motion. The dark elf had also followed him down. Mr. Assassin couldn't be sure if this kid was okay or not. Just a few seconds later, Ghoul's survival instincts took over as he abruptly twitched back into consciousness. He immediately sensed that someone was standing beside him, so a nasty uppercut was unleashed while questioning who the stranger was. Ghoul even followed up with a crisp slap before somewhat starting to make sense of the situation at hand. He awkwardly apologized for being startled by this unknown person he's now calling Bra. Noticing the pointed ears and the complexion, Ghoul might be seeing an elf for the first time in his life. This assassin is tired and weary. His legs are starting to give out, but those eyes are still full of relentless determination. The dark elf introduced himself as Adresin Ranwarin from the Redstone Forest. He's heavily wounded and in need of a helping hand, but before he could formally ask for Ghoul's help, the hot dog beast had already caught up on top of the cliff. The metal fixings on the beast's body are starting to sound like a steam engine. The noise and the temperature continuously rose to a terrifying degree. On its giant maw, a scorching hot ball of flame is starting to accumulate and swirl. The massive fireball was launched at such terrifying speeds that it resembled a meteor coming down from the heavens. Ghoul and Adresin Ranwarin were flabbergasted that they had to either tank or evade such a killer move. They actually had no choice at all. They had to jump out of the way with all their might unless they wanted to get literally cooked. Adresin was quite smooth with his evasion, but Ghoul was the king of throwing his body on painful surfaces. The Dark Elf's injury is starting to flare up again. He's losing blood at an alarming rate. The only hope he has is the young and clumsy orc in front of him. He desperately needs Gul's assistance. But as of now, Gul would rather save his ass before even hearing the assassin out. Try hard as he might, Adresin is closely teetering on the edge of succumbing to his injuries. Until finally, he passed out while the fearsome beast steadily approached from behind. Adresin was out of it for a while, but after faintly regaining consciousness, he witnessed something unbelievable. The young orc that ran like a coward is now carrying him. Gul was still crying in fear for his life, but the kid was risking his life to carry a stranger out of harm's way. Gul doesn't want to hear any talk. His mind is just set on one thing and one thing alone, getting out of here. But that might get even more difficult now that the beast is starting to ramp up in speed too. Gul and the assassin are about to get caught up in a very ugly ending. They must somehow run faster, or the upper half of their body can say goodbye to their lower half. Gul has been doing all the running for the past few moments, and now, a fatally sharp attack is coming for them from behind. He decided to chuck the Dark Elf up in the air away from the impact in the nick of time. As for the young orc, his speed and reaction time proved to be a lifesaver as he ducks the slicing force above. After a smooth dodge, it's back to running like he was running out of time. He threw Adresin quite far and high, and now the elf is quickly plunging from the night sky. Gul's speed and grit allowed him to dodge a kill shot while also keeping Adresin safe. That freaking hot dog's slicing energy just missed the duo by a hair. So, it's a good thing that Gul doesn't have any. The chase is far from over. The hot dog is cooking up another fiery spear out of its fearsome jaw. For now, the most prudent plan is to head for Puba's village as fast as they can. In there, they can ask for help from the adult orcs, and to do that, they must survive another massive and fiery explosion first. The duo luckily did it again. They clumsily avoided another kill shot at the cost of Gul's pants and ass, which are now burning. Gul is very familiar with the terrain at this point. He traversed the slithering vines while clutching onto Adresin and singing a local orc song. It didn't take too long for Gul to traverse the area with his ass out. He somehow managed to get Adresin right outside of the orc village. Being fast on his feet should earn him the right to throw a smug face to the pursuing beast. Meanwhile, it was just another night at Puba's village. Chief Garrick is sitting at the local ramen stand. He lets out a sigh for yet another stressful day of being a chief. His only saving grace from all the stress is his ramen. This bowl of glistening food of the gods is the only one that can understand his pain. Chief Garrick loves his ramen. He could sniff the steam coming from the bowl all day. The prospect of eating this perfect food makes him act like an excited schoolgirl. His battle-hardened hands look gigantic when he holds the tiny chopsticks. This was like a ritual for him. He takes the first batch of noodles, the perfect first bite. The chief blows on it for a little while. These noodles can absolutely scorch your tongue. Just enjoy Chief Garrick's Orson Boar Ramen ASMR mukbang. But before he could get the heavenly bite in his mouth, Garrick was rudely interrupted by a flying ghoul and some dark elf. The ramen stand was promptly blown to bits by the unstoppable impact. Ghoul and Adresin immediately passed out, surrounded by noodles, cookware, and the ruined walls of the ramen stand. The happy and excited Chief Garrick was gone in a split second. His eyes have turned dark. His veins started twitching out in pure rage and fury, and Ghoul just begged for help. But that wasn't a thing that bothered him. All his regrets were about his boil of delicious ramen. All this fury needed to go somewhere. Garrick's speed was simply unbelievable as he twisted his body around. Rage and tears filled his eyes. His fist was clenched and the trajectory was perfectly set. The pride of the orcs, the chief that everyone fears and respects, unleashed a punch so strong that it changed the art style. He called it Ramen Revenge. The beast stumbled all over the place. Its body bounced around like it was nothing, and that dog did not stand a chance. Every infrastructure along the way was devastatingly destroyed. The fearsome beast did not even look like a wolf or dog at the end of the beating. It was launched right into the place where the two mysterious figures were standing. The two seemed unbothered that their pet just crumpled like paper. They just smiled and tossed the monster away. For them, failing its mission just makes the thing a useless beast. The main event is about to start. It looks like this blue-skinned duo has now set their sights on not just the elf, but also on the orcs. Chief Garrick has regained his composure after sending the dog flying to oblivion. He ordered the other orcs around to sound the horn to warn every one of the intruders. The response was swift after the order was handed down. The horn was heard throughout the village. Orcs of every profession, young and old, coordinated the evacuation to the village shelter. While for some, the threat of intruders is a call to action, to take up arms. It was the sign to march down the village and join the chief for battle. The veterans of Puba's village are about to enter the fray. Everyone is prepared to battle with their lives on the line, with Chief Garrick leading at the front. It's a battalion of strong orcs against two mysterious demonic figures that just look like bad news. For intruders who set foot in the village uninvited, Chief Garrick will not hesitate to prepare for war. He vows to show the two shady intruders that they have just made the biggest mistake of their lives. The orc warriors of Puba's village are ready to join their leader. Chief Garrick leads the charge with a heavy step forward. Meanwhile, Gul is in a panic as the Dark Elf has finally lost consciousness due to fatigue and injury. Not far from the commotion, the other junior hunters are sneakily observing what's happening. Two of them want nothing to do with the unfolding events, but Mutu wants to get closer. Mutu wants the junior hunters to go in as a team, even though the orc uncles are about to engage in war. They will only go in with the condition that Mutu goes first as the leader. The three stooges rush to Gul's side while Baldy is in a panic. Gul finally notices that his buddies have come out of the village to see the front lines. Of course, he immediately performs an epic handshake with his friend, Mutu. The other junior hunters are confused about why a withered-looking eggplant is covered in blood on the floor. One of the orc warriors sees the insolent kids and yells at them for being near the battlefield. They then explain that they were just simply looking for Gul. On the other side of the field, the mysterious duo has finally made their move. Both of them are smirking, as if they are not about to go against a full-force orc battalion. But that confidence isn't unfounded. Gul shivers at the sight of those two smiling men. Mutu also feels the pressure and asks their orc uncles who they are up against. Based on the heavy presence alone, the warrior already knows what they are about to fight. For a brief second, Adrason opens his eyes and mutters something terrifying. These two mysterious figures are not just regular goons. Their piercing eyes that can see through everything can only be possessed by certain beings. They are full-blown demons, and they have descended to take away the Dark Elf. But Chief Garrick is unfazed. He issues a warning to the two to turn back or die right there and then. It looks like the smaller demon doesn't take that warning too seriously, though. He introduces himself as Isel Wright, the vice captain of the Greed Demon Army. Isel even proposes that they will leave the area as soon as they get the sneaky Dark Elf back. Chief Garrick of Orc Village Bubiz answers back with an introduction of his own. He won't let these demons tell him what to do in his territory, especially after destroying his precious ramen moment. Bargaining is out of the question. The greed demons can either leave or be buried in the ground. That gets a hefty laugh out of Vice Captain Isel, self-assured that the chief will regret his words. That's the signal for the bigger demon to grin from ear to ear and make a move. The big demon's speed is no laughing matter. He is gone with the wind in just a second. Chief Garrick senses a feeling of doom for a brief moment. But it is not for him. It is for his army. He turns to shout at everyone to hold their ground. The big demon's movements are as brutal as they are swift. These formidable orc warriors are systematically toppled one by one in one violent charge. One warrior manages to sense the danger coming from behind, blocking the massive fist of the muscular demon with a blade. But even decent reaction time and response can still be rendered useless by pure brute strength. The warrior is sent flying like he doesn't weigh a single pound after tanking a strike. He flies in pain while clutching his partially destroyed blade. Thankfully, there are some tiny helping hands waiting to break his momentum. The four junior hunters catch their orc uncle with gritted teeth. Even for a battle-hardened veteran orc, these demons really are too strong. The size difference itself is quite unbelievable, as orcs are known for their hulking frames. This eerie muscular demon is known as Fine, the third seat in the Greed Demon Army. The other side of the battlefield seems to be rowdier than this part, and the junior hunters are starting to worry. The warrior applauds the demon's badass introduction in his head. So he tries to make a cool one for himself too, but his name is literally Bob the Builder. He proudly points to the house that he has just built as if it is supposed to be amazing. When it comes to orc build quality, Bob the Builder really is on top of the game when it comes to sturdiness. Fine. The demon is amused by that introduction. He didn't know that he's up against someone who builds, a perfect match for him as a being that is only good at crushing. The third seat demon primes his legs for a charge to end all charges. Bob the Builder stands tall and proud, protecting the new generation behind him. Before the fight can get any more out of hand, he yells at the brats to get out of the way as fast as they can. Now that they've seen what the enemies are capable of, genuine fear lights a fire under their behinds. Bob the Builder and his cracked blade are going to give a battle of strength another go. It is obvious that Bob is heavily straining himself while Fine is just smiling maniacally. As Chief Garrick warned his troops of the impending danger, he made a grave mistake. He failed to keep his eyes on the other enemy, Isel Wright, the vice captain of the Greed Demon Army. That demon was already airborne, preparing an extremely lethal kick to the back of the head. The strike produced a sonic boom and an impact capable of destroying anything in its path. Thankfully, the chief had lightning-fast reactions and a very tough defense. He tanked that hit as if it were nothing, and subsequently swatted Isel Wright, forcing the demon to retreat. Isol was merely amused by this. He was fighting the embodiment of orc strength, and he couldn't help but laugh. He was genuinely impressed that the orc chief was more capable than he initially expected. But the chief was going to get serious now. He had just witnessed how fast the demon moved. The only solution to this problem was to finish the fight quickly. Taking off his jacket, Easelwright didn't believe that it would be that easy for the chief, as this was just the beginning. Or maybe if he went hard right from the get-go, this might also be the end. Easelwright was a speed freak, zooming through the field as if the laws of physics didn't exist. Chief Gurek stalwartly braced himself for an impact that mysteriously never came from the front. However, the chief had a razor-sharp instinct when it came to combat. He knew that his back was fully exposed. So, he quickly turned around with a bloodthirsty look on his face. He unleashed a blind and savage spinning kick that caught Easelwright square in the face. It sent the demon spinning like a relentless cyclone upwards. But Easel was formidable. He managed to recover and regain balance on the ground after a few seconds. He didn't feel pain. He felt even more excited instead. He wanted to fight the chief even more than before. Eisel's smug smile could vanish in the next second, and the chief could only see a faint blur. The next thing you knew, the demon had already closed the distance and planted a solid knee in the chief's face. Garrick was sent flying as his face bled profusely. He lost control of his body for a moment as he spun and tumbled through the open field. To make matters worse, the demon wasn't done chaining his bloody and brutal combos yet. With every critical hit landing cleanly on the chief, Isel was starting to think that this fight was becoming boring. Chief Garek's massive body went from being bloodied up to getting sent down from above like a meteor. His landing even left a small crater for his blood to pool on. A demon is a being without mercy. Isel knocked the chief's head even harder to the ground with a stomp. He blamed the chief for being an idiot for not just handing the elf out. Now Isel just wanted the guy to watch his beloved village crumble into dust. On the other side of the battlefield, Bob the Builder and Fine were also having their own face-off. Bob had heard that these demons' objective was the mysterious elf. The elf happened to be with the kids of their village, so he must buy time for those brats to run away. But seeing the terrifying figure of the gigantic Fine, he was starting to think that this might just be the end for him. Bob believed that even if that's the case, the orcs would never back down in a fight. Even if he faced the bone-crushing strength of this absurdly muscular demon, he wouldn't give up. But Bob's trusty blade was no match. The collision pulverized his weapon. For a brief moment, Bob the Builder knew what was coming next. He had nothing to defend against the barbaric strength of a high-ranking demon. Bob was a sitting duck, and a goddamn demonic hammer was about to descend upon him. Fine effortlessly wiped the orc warrior out of where he was standing. To add to the insult, Fine even sent Bob the Builder flying to the home that he proudly built. Bob's injuries were severe, to say the least. He had a deep crater across his whole torso and stomach. But the demon was not done yet. With that devilish speed, the muscle freak was going for more. He wanted to make sure that Bob was firmly attached to the house that he built, because it could also serve as his final resting place. His casket. A savage punch destroyed Bob's insides, and the excess impact raised the sturdiest house in the village from the ground. Bob the Builder was firmly and utterly defeated. Fine praised Bob for being brave until he finally broke. The demon wouldn't let this orc buy any more time for their mission. Not far from the tragic scene, the junior hunters were running desperately and full of fear while carrying the dark elf. Even though they gained some distance, Fine's demonic speed was still far too much to go up against. Another one of the muscular demon's punches was unleashed like a ton of TNT. When the smoke cleared from the air, there seemed to be someone else amidst the commotion. She had long and lustrous black hair and strong and fierce eyes, and she successfully blocked a demon's powerful fist with a single hand. To the junior hunters, she was Auntie Lozen. To Mutu, she was his master, and for everyone in the village, she was the chief's right hand. Let's rewind just a little bit earlier and witness the evacuation efforts of Puba's village. Lozen was leading the charge to ensure everyone's safety inside the emergency shelters. Meanwhile, on the other side of the commotion, a messenger orc hurriedly arrived to notify the elder. This messenger ran all the way to relay the news that intruders were at their doorstep. However, it seemed like the pipe-smoking elder was not too bothered by the update. The fearsome-looking elder orc already knew what was going on with all the commotion. Lozen was busy getting everyone to safety when the explosions from the height of the battle sounded out. She immediately made a mad dash to get to the front lines as fast as she could. The evacuation area is located up a cliff above the village, and the war is happening down below. Lozen spotted the junior hunters desperately running away from something with their lives on the line. If she takes the proper way down, there is no chance of making it to them on time. Knowing that she'd have to jump down at such heights, the chief's right hand activated her Reiju spirit beast. The soul of a massive and commanding rhinoceros emanated from her body. One of the older orcs explained what's happening to those who don't know. This sight is something to behold. Lozen's spirit beast, the rhino. Only a few orc warriors are blessed with such power. It takes endless grinding and training to awaken their inner beast. In Lozen's case, this awakening granted her massive strength and skin as hard as armor. This powerful orc lady is not the chief's right hand, just for nothing. With one swift and formidable jump, she propelled herself like a missile. Adeptly controlling her body's breakneck speed, she focused her target on the junior hunters. Fine was just about to get an orc child quadra-kill, but Auntie Lozen was already on the way to rescue. With the soul and body of a beast, she's the ultimate orc fighter. The right hand of the chief fittingly stopped a demon's attack with just her right hand. Fine immediately sensed that the newcomer is not someone to take lightly. He unleashed another chaining combo to follow up on the blocked strike, but the quick follow-up was easily thwarted as well. Seeing how cool and how well their Auntie Lozen was going toe-to-toe with the demon, the kids couldn't help but cheer. It was as if they had just seen their savior descend from the skies. Mutu was swelling with pride for his master. Gul was quick to assert that his Uncle Bob was way more badass though. Even in the midst of battle, these punks are still bickering. They almost forgot that they should be getting the Dark Elf some medical attention, and the poor guy is now bleeding out even more. Hearing the nonsense coming out of these brats ticked off Lozen. She was almost as fearsome as a demon, yelling at the punks to shut the hell up. Lozen is still trying to get a read on the situation. But the smart thing to do is for the brats to get the elf to Mr. Buta to get treated. But the biggest problem of them all is still standing right in front of her. Anyone who troubles the village shall be eliminated, and it's time for the grown-ups to step up and handle things. Every orc in the village, no matter their profession or age, is ready for the smoke. Even the butcher lady is ready to wreck some balls with the farmers and the incredible Hulk look-alike. Fine looked at the group that was about to gang up on him, and the demon didn't seem fazed at all. Leading the charge is Lozen with her savage and refined techniques. She started utilizing her spirit beast to enhance leg strength. The leg took aim at the demon while carrying a tremendous amount of explosive power. A single stomp lifted out a massive portion of the ground, resembling a rhino horn. It towered over the malevolent demon, but it didn't elicit any reaction at all. Fine just decided to leap up with unnatural strength and finesse over the lifted ground. On the other side was Lozen, absolutely locked in on combat. With her other foot, she utilized another spirit beast strengthening. Using the lifted ground as a ramp, Lozen zoomed toward the demon mid-air. That maneuver caught Fine by surprise for a moment. The spirit beast's energy emanated in a translucent form, charging like a raging rhino. With her fist as the concentration of all the piercing power, Lozen collided with the demon's fist. The showdown of pure power seemed to have ended in a definitive draw, but Fine was put in a much more precarious position while rapidly falling. On top of that, this battle is not being fought by just a single orc. Unfortunately, some of the adult orcs aren't as adept in combat and can be easily dispatched by the third seat of the Greed Demon army. Even with minimal control of his falling body, Fine can still spot that the other orc ladies are setting up something that will hurt on the ground. Fine landed and struggled to find balance for a few moments. Two fast-moving blurs are already circling him like a pair of sharp spinning blades. It was the butcher and the farmer orc ladies, landing some nasty flesh wounds on either side. The smug smile on Fine's face was replaced with silent rage instead. These two ladies are treating the demon's body as their meat to carve and slash as they please. Fiend's solution to stop that is to snap their blades off completely. The coordinated attacks have ground to a halt. It was a great shock for the two orc ladies. After getting rid of the pesky blades, the demon took a deep breath. He then spun around, creating a vacuum of air that repels everything in his immediate vicinity. After stopping his efforts to blow away the orc ladies, it seems like Bruce Banner also wants some piece of the demon action. The Hulk orc took advantage of Fine's wide-open back and unleashed some hard-hitting combos. But that kind of firepower is not enough to seriously harm a high-ranking demon. It just ended up enraging Fine even further. He countered, but the Hulk orc was light on his feet and managed to dodge. Sadly, for the Hulk, that was followed by a savage face grab and a point-blank death sentence. Has become seriously mad as the sound of Hulk's head crashing on the floor sounds out. Lozen has recovered from the collision and is now rushing to have another go with the brutish demon. If she can land her spirit beast-infused strike, she might just be able to save the Hulk orc. At the same time, the situation on the chief's side appears to be grim as well. Izol has beaten up the orc leader and is now reminding to finish off the enemies and get the elf. Didn't seem to hear what his partner just said. The only thing going through the brute was that he's extremely mad. He was so mad to the point of using his fist to mash the Hulk's face mercilessly. Lozen was just a few seconds too late with her spirit beast charge, but she will try to land her meteor rhino punch at all costs. It was a strike befitting a great warrior of the orc race. The impact was enough to turn world upside down, but the demon regained footing as fast as he lost it. The only thing he lost from that fearsome punch was his freaking hat. Stood still, and it seemed like time had stopped. His hat was gone, and his bald head with 3 pieces of paltry hair was exposed. The muscular demon has regained his unhinged grin after feeling how strong the orc girl is. Lozen has heard others talk about how strong demons are, but seeing it in person is just absurd to her. She had used up all her energy in a short period of time, and most of the villagers are now out of commission as well. The chief's right hand can only hope that she bought enough time for the kids to escape. For the sake of all the injured and fallen warriors, the brats must be saved. But the stupid young orcs did not even run. They were just hiding in a bush watching the battle unfold. Mutu was even celebrating how strong his master Lozen was. They ignored orders and forgot about taking Adrison Ranwarin to the village doctor, Mr. Buta. Hearing the rustling nearby, Lozen's veins almost popped in anger with how dumb these kids were. They already know that they're screwed after being noticed and started pointing fingers at each other. Now they're not only scared of the demons, but they're also horrified by Aunt Lozen. The chief's right hand has every right to get angry at these insolent kids for not thinking. But it seems like she doesn't have much time to give a thorough lecture as an explosion just reverberated through the field. The impact of the explosion even knocked the brats and the unconscious dark elf out of their hiding spot. One question lingered in Lozen's mind. That is whether the chief finished his ramen or not. Gul was positive that Chief Garrick's ramen time was ruined along with the whole stand. Lozen already felt a headache coming as this situation is not going to be pretty. Chief Garrick went from being slumped and beaten on the floor to being revitalized. His face was messed up and bloody, but his power level was visibly rising. Izol Wright could not believe his eyes. This type of pressure can only come from experts called Beastmasters. The demon's biggest mistake was giving the chief a chance to stand back up. Chief Garrick's Reiju spirit beast exploded out in the form of a gigantic bear, fitting for a warrior of his stature. Izol composed himself and went right back to his arrogantly smug laugh. A Beastmaster is the strongest orc alive. The demon never thought that he would meet someone like that here. The chief was trying to hold back in fear of wrecking the village, but now all he wants to do is make Izol regret stepping foot on Buba's village and spoiling his precious ramen time. The demon was the first one to rush in, excited to test the skills of a powerful enemy. Izol's speed really was something to behold. His blur produces a powerful sonic boom, but a simple kick with nothing but speed won't be enough to pierce through an angry orc chief. Garrick tried to follow up with a grab, but the demons remained slippery. Another sneak attack coming from behind was blocked just in the nick of time. The chief tried to counter, but he's still lacking in the battle of speed, and Izol is going for a low attack. That one was tough, but Chief Garrick pulled through with a successful block again. This time it seems like the orc can take advantage of an opening from an attack error. The two fierce competitors are now giving everything in their power to come out on top while gritting their teeth. Garrick has finally pulled out his ferocious and dreadful bear hammer. No matter how fast the demon was, this was an attack of a different caliber than he could comprehend. Just one chop has laid down the seemingly untouchable vice captain of the Greed Demon Army. The chief's hammer made his entire body bounce on the hard ground like a basketball. Pain slowly crept up in his brain as he squealed unintelligible sounds. Demons can be brutal, but orcs can be just as vicious. The chief seized Izol's whole head in his massive hands. That devilish headlock was then followed up by a lightning-fast and perfectly placed knee strike. Izol has lost all control of his body. He has become the chief's personal punching bag. While in the air, it was unclear if the demon even had thoughts anymore. He was forced to instinctively wake up when he felt the gigantic orc put him in a very sussy wrestling hold mid-air. This was the chief's very special whirlwind bear bomb, a physical feat so powerful that it creates a natural disaster. The non-stop rapid spinning scrambled the demon's mind even more than it already was. But Izol still found a way to break the chief's momentum and get out of a surefire kill shot. Izol Wright has somehow broken free and retreated. His arms are starting to glow with an ominous aura. The aura eventually solidified and formed some sort of dark arm gear. A few high-ranking demons are capable of this transformation. It's called the Soul Cast. Even after all that beating, a demon's body can still recover in a short instance. The demonic vice captain's smug smile even returned to his face as that mysterious arm gear started revving up. It was a dark attack with incredible force. Izol's eyes are filled with bloody murder after being beaten up just a few moments ago. He managed to make the fight a close combat scuffle, landing a clean kick right in the chief's jaw. That hit has restored the demon's almost maniacal confidence. He went on and chained even more kicks from various angles. He was fast and unpredictable. Chief Garrick remained calm and collected, even though he was being hit for free. That was because the orc chief was just waiting for an opening to exploit as soon as the demon got too confident. Garrick held onto the outstretched leg with so much grip strength that it almost broke completely. Feeling the spirit beast presence on that grip, it was at this moment Izol knew he messed up. The vice captain of the Greed Demon Army ate dirt in the most violent way possible. He was not getting off easy with just one bite either. Chief Garrick is already priming another serving. Orcs can do some cruel things when push comes to shove. This is one of those situations. Izol Wright is learning that lesson the hard way. He's eating dirt and getting his whole body treated like a hammer. Endless bangs on the hard ground can be heard from that point on. It only stopped when the supposedly brown dirt had turned crimson red with demon blood. Chief Garrick felt compelled to introduce himself again. As the chief of Bubi's village, he's known as the Beast. He's not even a Beastmaster yet. On the other side of the battlefield, it appears that the intruder war is not happening at all. A silhouette of an evidently older orc cracking his back can be seen inside one of the homesteads. Next came his legs. This man is performing a chiropractor ASMR on his own. He finally stood up and fixed his posture for a little bit, before he exploded out of the house, disregarding the door and everything along the way. Lozen has completely lost consciousness under the constant beating of the brute demon. Junior Hunter Mutu's anger boiled to new heights as he stared at his master's current state. The frustrated kid even gave away their location just to yell at the demon. Now there's nothing but empty space separating them from the fearsome demon's merciless fist. Ghoul wanted to run, but Mutu wanted to hold on to the principle that orcs must never run from a fight. The dumb brat might be good at hunting forest animals, but this is a demon we're talking about. The three stooges went ahead and ran in without Ghoul. One of them even picked up a tiny stone to use as a weapon. Was insulted that such puny brats would dare to charge at him without regard for their well-being. The demon's hand looked as though it was bigger than the young orc that's about to get flicked. Smiled creepily as he sent Mutu flying with just a trivial flick like a tiny ant. As for the other two, the demon is going to have a lot of fun punishing their studied decisions. A push to the forehead completely knocked out the other kids as Ghoul watched in fear. The last one standing is the tiny bald Ghoul. He froze at the sight of such a humiliating attack. Unleashed the last flick, and the air around his hands imploded. When the dust from the forceful finger finally cleared, was left with a confused look. The bald kid actually managed to dodge his casual flick perfectly, albeit timidly. Ghoul was trembling in his boots, but he's still on his toes, paying attention to the demon's moves. Tried to swat him like a fly, but he narrowly dodged that kill shot too. Unfortunately for him, jumping and weaving will eventually get you caught in an awkward position. Was fascinated by how wild Ghoul was as the lively orc resorted to insulting the demon for being ugly. Ghoul then utilized the cramped space through the fingers to deliver a brazen kick that took one of Ump's teeth out. Even for a seemingly invincible demon, that quick kick stung quite a bit. It's not helping that Ghoul kept on trash-talking him for having just 3 pieces of hair. Ghoul's glib tongue has really put him in a very precarious position this time around. Put some serious force on his arm and threw the tiny orc like a record-breaking fastball. Ghoul was like a speeding bullet, hurriedly heading for the first solid surface to slam onto. But a mysterious orc hand suddenly reached and caught his body mid-air. The one that caught Ghoul is known as Old Man Gurren. He's the elder of the orc village, Bubiz. For brash kids like Ghoul, the old man will only accept being referred to as Elder Gurren. The elder looks like he couldn't be bothered at all while a demonic intruder battle is happening. He just wanted to scold Chief Garrick for destroying the village again. Prior to arriving here, the elder had also sensed Lozen somewhere nearby. He saw the grim state of the chief's right hand, bloodied and beaten. Elder Gurren promptly turned towards the demon and called his attention. Wasn't really built for thinking, so the big guy is quite confused about what's happening. The elder asked if the demon in front of him did all this damage, but he already knew the answer. He also knew the next steps that he must do to correct this disrespect. Suddenly felt a sensation that he's never felt before. He couldn't believe that a mere orc can overwhelm him to this degree, just through pure aura. The brute is not one to underestimate the old orc, just like Isel did earlier. He had also activated his soul cast. He's still sticking to the mission of acquiring the elf as top priority, and he intends to do that with his Lagandrill soul cast. The big dummy knows that he's in a very poor spot now that he can't even sense the vice captain's presence at all. So, through his barbaric strength and fearsome drill, he's going to move forward at full force. Elder Gurren just quietly watched the demon rush in as he activates a partial Reiju, his dragon arm. His green skin became covered with golden scales as his spirit beast manifests in a solid form integrating with his body. The old man stopped the relentless drill on its tracks with just a palm block, all while giving respect lessons to the demon. For a moment, it looked like the drill was starting to slow down from its initial ferocity. In the next second, Gurren tightened his draconic grip, and the solid demonic drill started crumbling. Until finally, it was thoroughly destroyed into 1,000 tiny pieces akin to brittle glass. Feeney gasped in disbelief as his most powerful move disintegrated in the wind. To that, there's just one piece of advice that the elder can give to the brute. The unrelenting demon can just start by saying goodnight. Fine, the glorious third seed of the Greed Demon Army, tanked Elder Gurren's dragon chop directly to the skull. The impact from that chop alone has left a massive gaping crater with unfathomable depth, effectively burying the demon. Its effects have spread across the village as aftershocks cleared out the houses in the nearby area. Elder Gurren dealt the final blow in the demonic intruder battle on this fateful night. This old orc does not really care about whatever purpose the demons had in coming here, but they've hurt a lot of the villagers. And for that, the almost invincible Fine's head was crushed to something that did not even resemble a body part. As the old man contemplated in silence, the loud and domineering voice of Chief Garek called out to him. The chief criticized the elder for basically destroying the village in one shot. His dragon chop has left a very sussy-looking hole in the outskirts of their territory. Elder Gurren stayed silent for a moment. He then denied the village destroyer allegations while insulting the chief for being an incompetent fool. The two bickered like they have a lot of history together. Old man Gurren is so old that he went to battle wearing just one boot. The old orc wasn't even supposed to be here. He was supposed to be living a chill life while the chief takes care of issues like intruders. But tonight was excusable, as one of these demons could easily destroy the village if they wanted to. Old man Gurren blames the chief's shortcomings for eating so much ramen and not enough meat. Back in the village entrance where Wright was supposed to be beaten down, a blood trail moving away from the walls can be seen. The trail continues to extend towards the dark and dense forest. Wright has survived within an inch of his life and is now sneakily making his escape as best as his broken body could. He wouldn't have time to escape if it wasn't for the explosion that killed Fine. Now the vice captain knows that these orcs are the real deal. Despite that, Izol is the type of man to hold a grudge. He vowed to be right back with a vengeance. Today, Gul was chased by his auntie with a knife for stealing meat. He bumped his head on a log, ran around the forest, climbed a shaky mountain. He was disciplined by the chief. Fell off his prestigious cliff toilet, drank his very own piss. He was chased by a fire beast. Fell off a different cliff once again. He carried a wounded elf to safety, burned his pants and ass from a fireball. He crashed into a ramen stall, had a go with a really powerful demon, and finally witnessed the most epic chop in his life. After so much has transpired, Gul can be found sleeping soundly without a care for the world. Gul's long day finally ended. 2 days have passed since the intruder incident. The orc villagers are keeping their hammers busy with the reconstruction efforts after the destructive battle. It's a nice sunny day to spend outside and not in a damn medical hunt, which our boy Gul is currently doing. It's been 2 whole days of uninterrupted sleep for the guy. He sleeps with his mouth wide open, inviting all kinds of disgusting elements to go in. For example, a fly. That fly served as his wake-up call to finally get out of bed now that he's fully recovered. As he was expelling the evil insect from his mouth, a scholarly-looking orc came to his side with blinding speed. Instead of taking care of the injured boy, the scholarly-looking orc unleashed a nonchalant slap to the face. This is the doctor of Booba's village, Mr. Buddha's way of welcoming Gul back to the real world. Gul has fully woken up from the sting of that slap and is now back to insulting the adults with his foul mouth. Calling the doctor Ugly Buddha. Mr. Buddha is done with all the insults and the constant trips of this bald kid to his home, on account of always being wounded. Gul's only saving grace in this place was Dura, the assistant doctor. The gentle orc lady gives a certain type of comfort that Gul really likes. Dura was always there to take Gul's side. She's extremely soft like that. Gul looked around the room frantically, looking for the elf that was apparently seeking an audience with the elder at the moment. Buddha was also reminded that Elder Gurren had asked for Gul as soon as he woke up. So he needs to get out of bed, and Dura will accompany him. Even as the two were leaving the doctor's home, Gul just couldn't resist getting in just one more mocking gesture. Things have been incredibly peaceful right after the attack. Gul and Dura are now casually en route to meet the elder. Gul then asked his Dura-Nishan where the 3 stooges, his fellow junior hunters, were. He's wondering if Dobuk, Kagan, and Mutu are also meeting the elder, but Dura explained that they wouldn't, as those 3 are helping with the reconstruction of the village. They've recovered from their respective injuries, and they are being punished for not following orders that led to more orcs getting hurt. Hearing that scared Gul, as he was already complicit with those 3's actions. He's terrified of what that old orc is going to do to him, but Dura just assures him that it'll be alright. After a few minutes, we finally arrived at Oknar, the 3rd level of boobies. Chief Garek had a few gashes here and there, but he was relatively healthy. Now he wants to hear the casualty report from Oboy. Oboy the messenger promptly reported that 32 warriors are wounded, 28 are now able to walk, 4 are still in bed, and 3 orcs had died. The ceremony to burn their bodies has already been arranged. As for the corpse of the demon, it's already been burned separately. The orc builders are in full force as they try to rebuild the 3 market stalls that were destroyed by the demons, and the 11 that the chief himself devastated. Elder Gurren looked at the chief with a ramen-filled belly judgingly. He decimated the left wing fence that is now under repair, and there's the issue of a bunch of craters made by the chief's attack. Compared to that, right-hand warrior Lozen only made 1 huge crater overall. As for Elder Gurren, he made an unrecoverable deep hole that even the builders have no idea what to do with. The old man had the gall to judge others when he knows damn well that he had his fair share of damage. Gurren was saved by Dura and Gul arriving at that very moment. Brabagul has come back after 2 days of being out of commission, and he's ready for whatever the chief has in store for him. It looks like Durachan is quite popular with every one of the orcs. The orcs couldn't help but yell, "Boobies number 1." Even the elders' tone has become gentler as they welcome Dura. And as it turns out, she's the sister of Chief Garrick. Gul was trying to sneak away while the pleasantries were being exchanged, but Adresin noticed him and said his greetings. Until now, Gul still can't pronounce the Dark Elf's name correctly. It's also astonishing that the guy's injuries have already healed up. Now that Oboy is done with the reports, it's about time to address the elf's requested private audience with the Elder-in-Chief. Gurren wants everyone to wait outside for this one. The injured orc villagers did not like that idea. They think that they deserve to hear what's going on after what has happened in the village. Adresin understands their sentiments. It grieves his heart to hear the damage that he has caused to everyone in Boobies. He formally introduced himself as Adresin Ranwarin, Ran for short, a dark elf from the Redstone Forest in the Kingdom of Elves, but Ran wants to talk about his plight privately. The villagers might want to understand the situation, but he cannot reveal the details of his classified mission for fear of endangering more people with the weight of the information he's carrying. Elder Gurren understands that this type of thing requires discretion very well. The chief also does, so he puts his foot down and orders the villagers to wait outside the assembly hall and to trust his judgment. Ran explained that he was given the mission to track the demons and retrieve a particular artifact stolen from the Elven Kingdom. After some time, he finally found the Greed Demon Army base camp, and he was ready to infiltrate. To do this safely, he utilized an elven cloak with the special ability to conceal his presence. He was able to stroll past the front gate, right under the eyes of the greedy gate guards. He used the walls and everything he could to stroll past battalions after battalions of demons. Ran was aware that even if they could not see him, he still needed to be wary and light on his feet. In this covert mission where one wrong move can spell death, every second counts. Ran had to move fast for the sake of his stealth duration. He had to sling his way through the enemy territory as the stealth consumed heaps of mana. Fortunately for Ran, he's quite adept when it comes to these kinds of situations. He's an expert dark elf assassin after all. At the start of the mission, he thought it would be hard to locate the Greed Demon's treasure room, but as he looks at the gate engraved with a "Greed is good" epitaph, it looks like his expectations are unfounded. He found the damn treasure room in plain sight. There were no complicated locks or strong-looking guards posted up. Just a massive room with all kinds of treasure as far as the eye can see inside. Anyone with a brain laying their eyes upon this room would find it weird. One might even consider that this was just a trap, but right now that doesn't matter to Ran. He's almost out of mana from constantly maintaining the stealth ability, and he must execute the mission at hand without fail. Now comes the crucial part. To open his dimensional pouch, he must deactivate his stealth mode first. From here on out, keeping the artifact safe is his top priority. It was at this moment that he mistakenly let his guard down. The guardian of this place was Kayuiro, an elf hunter beast. A ferocious monster was waiting there all along. That was why there were no guards posted anywhere. To make matters worse, it was not just any run-of-the-mill creature, it was an elf hunter entering attack mode. With Kayuiro sounding out the alarm with its roars, every single Greed Demon soldier in the base camp was notified of what was happening in the treasure room. At the same time, Fine and Ezel Wright were just chilling in their quarters, eating good food and playing some good old Jackstone. Their fun time was rudely interrupted by an explosion right at the main entrance of the base camp. Ezel looked but didn't see anything worth fussing over at first. Ran has reactivated his stealth, but even that means nothing, for this elf hunter beast can smell an elf from miles away. At least the demons can't see him, but the assassin was way too naive. And that was punished when the beast unleashed a smog that neutralized his cloak's power and unveiled him for every demon to see. Try as he might to reactivate the ability again, that 1 second of vision made all the difference. Vice Captain Ezel had already caught a glimpse of the sneaky elf, and with a mischievous laugh, asked to toss him a single coin. Was quick to comply, tossing his boss a gold coin. Ezel Wright manipulated the coin right in front of his fingers. He thinks that it's about time for the purple rat to stop sneaking around. With a simple flick of a finger, Ezel launched the coin forward like a high-caliber bullet, almost breaking the sound barrier. This was what caused the injury that Ran had endured for a long while. After being pierced by a damn coin, he looked up and saw the smug and unserious face of that demon, Ezel Wright. The dark elf gritted his teeth with pain and anger for being put in such a precarious situation. An incoming barrage of bullet-like gold coins rained down on the dark elf. The impact of each one was stronger than the last as he crashed through the courtyard of the base camp. He managed to regain his balance after tanking a few, but the injuries he sustained were severe. As Ran was detailing his experience, Chief Garrick interrupted the story by asking how he got hit when Dark Elf assassins are supposed to be known for being swift and untouchable. The chief thinks that Ran is a noob while Oh Boy served everyone popcorn as if they're in a movie theater. Gull, on the other hand, was fixated on the idea of how cool the base of those demons was. Ran tried to interject that the demons just got lucky that they had an elf hunter beast as a pet, and that he could have easily cleared the mission. He was pouring everything into storytelling, but the orcs were lost in their own loud chatter. Hidden bases, smoking pets, everything else, Gull was pretty much enamored with all the cool details that Ran had been recounting. The kid even bragged that he also has his own secret base, but admits that the demon base must be 10 times cooler. Lozen is losing her patience while everyone is not even listening. Ran had to catch their attention back with an angry shout to shut everyone up, uncharacteristic of a silent assassin. But it worked. He effectively made everyone behave to listen to the rest of the story. He even received Lozen's thumbs up of approval. So, the Dark Elf cleared his throat to continue his tale. The coin hit him hard and clean. He was able to block some of the impact with his string vest, but it pierced through and left a very deep wound. He had to stitch it up and use an elven healing spell called Bim Highly, just to stop the excessive bleeding. Seeing this was the signal for Izol to take a closer look, as his interest had been piqued. As the vice captain jumped in from the top of his tower, of course, would not miss the show, even if he had to take his food to go. The two high-ranking demons have officially entered the fray, after jumping down from a deadly height. Izol was just chilling in the air, waiting for gravity to do its thing without a care, and was still eating his fish balls mid-air. The vice captain smiled deviously as he eyed down the elf. He was amused that the purple rat survived his deadly coin toss. Ran wanted to convince himself that he was not short-tempered. He's trying to be modest, as a matter of fact. But seeing Izol's blue marlin piece of shit smug face really awakened something in him. He hated that smile on that face enough to go toe-to-toe with an elf hunter beast by his lonesome. To deal with this precarious situation, he had some cards up his sleeves. One of them was his hook shots. A magical rope was attached to a sharp blade that could latch onto the tall brick walls of the base camp. At that moment, he felt that a demon hitting a dark elf assassin was a huge insult, a stain on his profession. All he could think of while slinging through the air was hitting that demon back, even if it was just once. Ran bypassed the elf hunter beast's charge by utilizing his hook shots, and the flaming dog did not like that at all. The beast pounced once again, this time with a flaming sharp blade protruding near its paws. The beast was massive, ferocious, and most of all clever. It took out its scorching blade to target the magical ropes of the hook shot, and the beast succeeded. It was a clean cut. One move has effectively removed Ran's primary mode of mobility. He can't act like an attack on Titan Soldier anymore. As he was falling after being cut off, he saw the Greed Demon Soldier backups run towards his landing position. It was not looking good for the Dark Assassin at all. He's free-falling through the air and the enemies are already setting up an attack below. He assessed that there were two demons that would make contact the soonest. He would have to deal with these two first. Ran calmed himself down and thought about his next moves from here on out. He came to the answer that would settle almost any situation at hand. Just take his blades out and do what he does best. The assassin had one more hook shot, just enough to propel his body forward to a lower elevation, and it was enough to use as a vehicle to deliver some nasty kills. One slash to the neck is all he needs. With just one tiny and incredibly sharp blade, Ran is about to go sicko mode on these fools. Cannon fodder demons succumb to Ran's deadly strikes. Every time he brandishes his blade, another demon spurts out blood. It was as if Ran was reminding us that he was a dark assassin whom the Elven Lord trusted. What he does with the blade is nothing short of masterful and bone-chilling. The thing with army base camps is that there are an almost endless number of soldiers in them. And now, Ran was trapped in the heart of the enemy territory. To deal with that problem, there's only one thing better than one blade, and if you think it's two blades, then you're right on the money. Ran went on to deliver a bloody rampage. Heads, arms, legs, whole torsos, every single body part that you can think of was cleanly sliced off in a gory flourish. Ran was like a death god bringing an end to every demon's life at every step of the way, and now, his sights are set on the high-ranking demon duo. The two are watching him closely with fascination. The Dark Elf assassin ramped up his speed and spun with incredible swiftness as he charged in for the big shot demons. He knew damn well that this would not be a walk in the park like those regular demons that he just slaughtered. Seeing the perpetually smug look and smile on Izol Wright's cocky face made him feel like he was making the wrong move no matter what he did. At the end of the day, we know that he lost and had to retreat and run for a long time. Losing made him regain logic. Throughout the whole debacle, he exhausted his mana after letting his emotions get the best of him. He ran and ran for days, and his only fuel was anger directed towards himself. And that was when he met Gull. Ran was saved when he least expected it. He has never seen an orc that runs as fast as that kid does. Hearing this wholehearted speech about the troublesome Ghoul from the dignified Ran shocked everyone. Even Ghoul himself was surprised. The Dark Elf continued that since his wounds were reopened because of the constant and non-stop running for 3 days, he was not given the chance to catch his breath. It's hard to admit that when he passed out, that bald kid carried him until they reached the village to get some help. Elder Gurren knew what happened from here on out. Shit happened and it blew his people away. They could have avoided the casualties if they just handed Ran over. Chief interjected that they did not choose the easy but heartless way. They chose to fight and save this stranger's ass. Old Man Gurren was curious about one thing. Given that a dark assassin was handpicked by the Elf Lord on a retrieval mission, that must be one precious artifact. Ran opened his dimensional pouch, and a green light filled the room. He believes that what he has is an artifact that could open the gates to heaven. That circular and inconspicuous-looking gadget is referred to as Eternum. After hearing what Ran described and seeing the artifact itself, Elder Gurren punched the ground in anger and frustration. This bizarre reaction took everyone by surprise. The poor messenger and popcorn server, Oh Boy, was blown away by the impact. Chief and Lozen were shocked too. All the food was strewn all over the room, and Gul was knocked out cold. Elder Gurren's expression turned grimmer than when he faced high-ranking demons a few days ago. All just because Eternum was mentioned. He yelled that the elves have fucked up big time. Someone called Jess was supposed to be guarding that artifact with his life. Ran heard the name Jess come out of the elder's mouth, and he was stunned. Even Chief Garrick was kind of terrified as he watched the old man yap. He asked if that Eternum really was that important. Old Man Gurren asserted that of course it's important. Eternum is the artifact that helped them win the Great War 200 years ago after all. The old man affirmed that he'll explain the details later. For now, all that everyone needs to know is that if this precious artifact's location becomes known to many, it will be bad news. He is certain that just the news of Eternum being out in the world will bring unprecedented chaos. Ran explained that evil forces managed to steal the artifact when a shape-shifting demon successfully infiltrated the Elf Kingdom. That demon patiently waited for a slim chance to steal Eternum and eventually succeeded. That certainly explains why 2 high-ranking demons in the form of Isel Wright and Ump Fine were hunting Ran relentlessly. Old Man Gurren felt relieved that they chose to discuss this whole thing privately. Even the dumb chief knows that this is a serious matter after all. One thing that Gurren is certain of is that the demons are cooking up something at this moment. Ran must bring the artifact back to the Redstone Forest as soon as possible. The Dark Elf already knew that. He knew that better than anyone else. But for now, he wants to address everyone genuinely. He wants to express his deepest regrets for the harm that he has brought upon Pubi's village. Old Man Gurren has been through some tough times in his old age. He, of all people, knows that this is what it means to protect something for the greater good. The chief butted in to console the elf not to feel guilty for what transpired, as the orcs themselves are also responsible for their actions. Lozen could not have put it better herself. Even the dumb as bricks ghoul, casually lying down, understands the circumstance. It was at that moment, maybe for the first time in Ran's whole life, that he felt care from other beings. He felt such a strong emotional feeling that compelled him to slam his head down and prostrate on the ground, much to the orc's surprise. The tears of the Dark Elf finally cascaded out of his eyes. He knows that he is not worthy of the lives of the fallen. His words cannot express how grateful he is to everyone in the village. Ran can only pray that the spirits bless Booba's village and its people. Gurren nodded approvingly while the chief tried to lighten the mood like his usual jolly self. Ghoul even slipped in some innocent insult after seeing Ran weep like a baby. Lozen came to Ran's side to make him wipe his tears, as dark elf assassins are supposed to be always composed. Ran sniffed uncontrollably as he wiped his tears. He did not expect that orcs could be selfless and strong-willed like this. So, on behalf of the Redstone Forest Elf Kingdom, he wants to thank everyone for saving him. If it weren't for the orcs, he might have failed his lord by now. Gurren assured the Dark Elf that he was welcome here. He knows the scale and weight of this elf's mission, and he respects that Ran shared some highly classified information. While Ghoul didn't even understand a thing, the old man even interjected that he had known the Elf Lord for quite some time now. Chief Garrick did not believe him, though. He does not want to believe that this geezer has gone out to meet the Lord of the Elves at all. That earned him a telling the truth chop technique to the face from the swole old man, shutting his mouth up. Elder Gurren was telling the truth. Back in his day, he happened to be acquainted with the Elven Lord for a common cause. That revelation solved the puzzle in Ran's mind. He confirmed if Gurren really was the great Beastmaster Orc that joined the hero's party ages ago. Ran has been wondering how and why the orcs in this remote village were extraordinarily strong. The Elder himself even killed a high-ranking demon without breaking a sweat. Everything makes sense now. but the chief is still refusing that this lazy old man is a heroic figure in history. Gul, on the other hand, loves all things grand. He was foaming at the mouth as he tried to badger the old man for confirmation. Rand pulled Gul back and reminded the young orc to show some respect. Respect should be given when referring to the strongest orc alive.